there, it is Dusty Thunder with yet another Reddit story for you. This one comes from Relationship Advice and is titled, My 33 Male, Wife 30 Female, and Her Family Are Obsessed with the Idea that if her older sister was alive, I would be with her instead. I'm worried about her. How can I help? My wife and I, 33 male, have been married for almost 2 years now, and we have a little baby boy. I love my wife more than my own life, and I believe that in any lifetime, I would still find her and fall in love with her. My wife had an older sister, Mia, that passed away at 11 months old from a landslide collapsing on their home. What? She died before my wife was born. They're the only 2 daughters in a family of boys. When I met her family for the first time, everyone was nice, but it got weird when all they would talk about was their late daughter. My mother-in-law even showed me photo albums of Mia, which took about 2 hours to get through. I never thought anything of it, and then as much as I loved getting to know my wife's family, I would be more interested in seeing baby photos of my wife, but I just brushed it off. At dinner, they wouldn't stop talking about how if Mia was alive, she would be smarter or even prettier than my wife. Whoa, not cool. I would look at my wife when they said those things, but she would just agree with them. Whoa, it's been happening so long, she thinks that this is just the way it is. When we got married, the whole process was filled with, Mia would love this, Mia would look great in this, Mia would be more buxom than wife's name, her grandma. My wife would nod and agree each time they said something like this, that even my mother felt something was wrong. I talked to her before about this and she said, I know she's barely lived, but I know if she was alive, she would be so beautiful and smart. I know deep down if you met her, you would love her and not me. I had to trick her to get her into therapy because something was definitely wrong and maybe she was brainwashed. Life was great for 2 years since we moved 8 hours away from my in-laws for my job, but since my brother-in-law just got engaged, my wife is involved in planning. Just like they did at our wedding, they wanted to plan a memorial for Mia, which is totally fine, except that they weren't including her grandparents that had recently died, lived full lives, and gave them a hefty amount of inheritance. It wasn't my place, so I remained quiet, but now my wife started to say those self-deprecating things about her in comparison to Mia again. During the engagement party, everybody was gushing over my son about how cute he was, and that thank God he took after me. My wife has brown eyes and I have blue eyes. My boy has got the biggest brown eyes that makes me want to stare into them for hours. Yet her mom said, it's a shame he didn't get your blue eyes, though. If this was Mia's child, he would definitely have blue eyes too, since hers were blue. And it took all of me to not roll my eyes, but I just said, my wife has the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen, and I thank God every day that my son has them. She took that as an awe moment and said, if Mia was alive, I'm sure she would be holding her baby with you now. You would love her very much. I wanted to freaking shout at her, but I always reminded myself that people grieve differently, and as long as they need to. But I'm pissed that she keeps her dead daughter on a pedestal, but ignores and belittles her living, breathing one. Edit to add, my wife has been in individual therapy for more than 2 years, but she cut back on some hours after we moved since she felt a lot better. I always tell my wife that I would always choose her and that she deserves even better than me. My wife's 2 younger brothers that were born after Mia's passing also feel weird about the Mia comments, but often kept quiet about it because when they would defend my wife when they were younger, my mother-in-law would get emotional and go on a hunger strike. Both of my younger brother-in-laws were never compared to Mia. Top comment, you need to bring this to a close. The in-laws have become professional mourners and it has to stop before they start telling the baby how the dead aunt would be a better mother. Tell them if they don't stop, you won't be back and they will no longer have daughters. She hunger strikes? I think we've read stories before where a child passes, which is terrible. It's like the worst possible thing. And either the next child that they have, they treat as like a reincarnation of their previous child, or they completely neglect this child because of the mourning of the child who passed. And that's what's happened here. But it's happened for so long, her entire life, that she just buys it now. She buys into it. Her worldview was shaped with their feedback that she would never be as good as her sister could have been. And now I bet she feels a tremendous amount of guilt for being alive. The guilt that she must feel at their hands is inexcusable. To make your child feel like trash because you're mourning a child that you lost. Like, I don't understand how it never occurred to them that the things that they were saying or even thinking or feeling could be harmful. And that's the kicker, I think. If you're mourning in a way that is harmful to someone else, you're an asshole. That's it. If you're mourning in a way that makes your child feel belittled, like they're never going to be good enough and like they don't matter, you are sentencing your living child to a life of torture. You are sentencing them to a life where everything that looks, sounds, feels, and tastes like happiness will turn to ash in their mouth. You are giving them a disease. You are cursing them. And to what benefit? That's the part that pisses me off that I don't understand. What do mom and dad gain here? They're torturing themselves over and over and over again. They feel like this is their penance, that this is the price they pay for losing their child, that they have to say these things to make them feel everything fresh again, because if they forget at all, that's a disgrace to her memory. Is that what they think? They think that if they don't hold her on a pedestal for the rest of their lives, that they're somehow not doing her justice. They're somehow not doing enough for her. If your grief requires that you sacrifice someone living, that's not grief. That's you failing to grieve. That's you struggling with regret, struggling with guilt, struggling with failing as a parent to protect your own child. I understand it would be the worst possible thing to ever feel, to ever wrestle with for your life. But instead of wrestling with it and accepting that it happened and saying this was reality and now we have to move on to a new reality that doesn't involve our beautiful baby, and that sucks and it's terrible, but we have a family. We have a family here that we need to care for. We have a daughter. We have another daughter that we need to love the same way we would have Mia. We have another chance to raise a daughter. It's not a do-over, child. It's another chance, though, to raise a daughter and to do all the things we ever wanted to do with Mia. And instead, you just made sure that this daughter knew that she was always going to be second place, that the carrot in front of her could never be had, that she would never be good enough, that she would never be pretty enough or smart enough or anything enough. She would never be enough. If these were my parents, someday, the time is going to come when they pass on. Someday, I'm going to be in charge of headstones. Someday, one of those headstones is going to say, and the other one's going to say, you. No names, no nothing, just you. These people need help. But at this point, look, so the top commenter saying you need to bring this to a close. The in-laws have become professional mourners and it has to stop before they start telling the baby how the dead aunt would be a better mother. Tell them if they don't stop, you won't be back and then they will have no daughters. This isn't going to stop. This is not something that you alone can put a stop to, OP. This is a way of life for them. You can try, but I'm going to say with 95% certainty here that you're just going to have to go no contact. And really encourage your wife to stay in therapy. There is no like, I'm feeling a little bit better, so I'm going to do less. No. Like, we're going to keep going at full strength to make sure you keep feeling better. Because every time a family member shows up on your phone, all of a sudden you're not good enough anymore. You're not enough. You're self-deprecating. You get sucked right back in. But this is now this is a part of who she is now too. And I think she's going to have to accept that at some point, and you have to accept that too, OP, that this is part of who she is. She was raised this way. Her worldview is shaped through this filter that she will never be enough. It is sad. It's just sad. Snorts, F that, make a speech at the wedding addressing it. Cleared by brother-in-law first, of course. Hey, I mean, at least if you're dropping a public mic and then walking away, that's one thing. I don't think you're going to win the battle of them not treating her like this, because they've kind of bundled it in with their own penance. It's like they say these things about her as a way of like punishing themselves too. But it's cowardly because they pass on the pain to her. They feel it, but she has to live with it. They essentially like made her the mule that gets to carry all this baggage for the rest of her life, and they just deferred it onto her. That's the most terrible, shitty thing you could do as a parent.